Hey, this is Joe with Home Studio Corner. Two things. First, I got an air hockey table. So excited. And as of this shooting, I'm undefeated. So, yeah. Secondly, let's talk about recording vocals today. I've got 4 tips for you to crush your next vocal recording session. And if you want more tips from me in the form of a checklist, whenever you go to record something and you're stuck as to what to record, this checklist will give you a bunch of creative ideas to get the juices flowing, as gross as that metaphor is. You can have that for free. Just go to homestudiocorner.com/checklist to download your free copy of this ultimate production checklist. Number 1 is probably the number 1 thing you need to consider when recording vocals: the room itself. Microphones, as much as I love them, are stupid. So if I'm singing to the microphone, I would love for it to only hear my voice, but guess what? It's going to hear everything out here behind me as well. So if I'm singing in a bathroom, it's going to hear all those echoes. Similarly, if I'm singing in a room that has hardwood floors or tile floors and then drywall all around on the walls, and it's a very echoey room, the microphone will pick that up. Don't make the mistake of assuming it'll hide in the mix. If anything, when you go to mix the vocal and add things like compression, it's going to bring that sound out even more. So it's important to find a dead space to record your vocals. Doesn't have to be a full-on vocal booth, but I like to create a dead space in whatever studio I'm in. Ideally, for me, I do it right here in the mix position because I'm lazy. So I put 2 big gobos to the left and right of my mix position. They're just big 7-foot by 3-foot frames. They're about this thick, and they're filled with insulation, and they've got cloth on the outside to keep the insulation from making me itchy. But they do a great job of creating a dead sort of a space. Carpet is the other component that works really well. Really, with 2 gobos and carpet, you can create a little booth of sorts over off in a corner of your room to give you a clean enough sound for a nice vocal. Now, if you listen really carefully right now as I'm speaking, you probably hear the room a little bit. That's okay. That's going to happen. We don't want no room at all. The problem I hear, though, with a lot of people is their vocals are drowning in room sound. And maybe they don't realize it because they're listening to the vocal in the very room that they're recording. So the sound of the vocal coming out of the speakers also has room in it. So it's this terrible feedback loop. Get yourself a dead space. A closet full of clothes can work. Gobos can work. You can go as fancy as you want or just keep it simple. Hang a couple of blankets on a couple of mic stands and that'll accomplish it. It may not look great, but it sounds great. And of course, that's the point. Number 2, get close. While getting your room to sound great is really important, it's also important to make sure you get pretty close to the microphone when you're singing. Just imagine if the microphone is stupid and only hears whatever it can see, almost like a flashlight, then it makes sense that it sees more of my face. So if I'm here, a good, 4, 5, 6 inches away from the mic, that's going to pick up a lot less of the room than if the mic is way over here. I mean, how much more of the room can you hear and reflections off the desk and everything else with the microphone a good 2 feet away? We get it closer, we get a drier, cleaner sound. That doesn't mean you skip number 1. You still need your room to be pretty dead, or at least an area of your room. But getting close to the mic, A, that's the sound of a typical modern vocal, and B, it helps with that room stuff. Now, when you're going to get close, it's helpful to have something like a pop filter to prevent those plosives from hitting the mic and making that sound that's super annoying. Or if you don't have one of these and don't have a set of pantyhose you can use over a coat hanger to make one of those, you can just set the microphone off to the side of your mouth. Have it pointed like this and just sing just past the microphone. It's not as good as singing directly into it. The sound will be a little bit darker, but you'll avoid all the plosiveness and you can get a great sound that way. Number 3, set conservative levels. Setting levels doesn't need to be complicated. A lot of people like to make that meter, if the meter's like this is clipping, this is the quiet part, they like to make that volume get as close to this as possible. There's no bonus points for getting it as close to clipping as possible. And guess what? Singers tend to sing differently when they're recording than when they're doing check 1 2 check 1 2. So if you set the check 1 2 level way up here and then they start to belt, it's going to clip. And you're going to have to stop them and say, sorry, it clipped. Let's do that again. That's annoying. As a singer, I get annoyed by that. So instead, set a real conservative level. I'm talking like here. Like if this is the bottom and this is the top, I go about halfway up, maybe a little bit more. That way I've got plenty of headroom if they decide to belt something that I'm not ready for, and I don't have to worry about clipping at all. I can focus on other stuff like, are they singing the right part? Does it sound good? Is it in tune? Did they get the lyrics right? Is there something we need to change? I want to think about those creative things and not constantly be worrying about clipping. Number 4 is crucial. Get the headphone mix right. Singers need to hear themselves. That's obvious. But what a lot of people will do is they'll set up the headphone mix either for someone else or for themselves if they're the one singing, and they'll mix it like they're going to mix the song, where the vocal just sits right on top, maybe just a little bit above the music, blends in nicely, sounds wonderful. Problem, as a singer, you can't hear yourself well enough in that context to make sure you're singing on pitch. So what happens is you get a nice mix where the vocal sits in the mix really well and your pitch goes because you can't really hear the pitch of the vocal. Or if you put the vocal too quiet in their mix, they're going to push and sing louder just to be able to hear themselves, which typically a pushed vocal doesn't sound super great and it tends to push them to sing sharp. The vocal needs to be the loudest thing in the headphone mix, and then the mix needs to be down here. I'm talking, get their vocal level right, where they say, check, check, 1, 2, that sounds great, thank you. And then make sure the mix comes in like down here. Now, if you go too loud with the vocal, they start to sing too quietly, right? Because it's literally too loud in their ears. So there is a happy medium there, but the difference between the vocal level and the rest of the mix needs to be pretty significant. I'd say 3 to 6 dB so they can hear themselves clearly, they have fewer pitch issues, and you don't have to go back later and say, oh, what did I do on this vocal session? Okay, I got one more. Bonus tip number 5, be flexible in your approach to recording. When singers come in, sometimes they want to joke around, and that really helps them loosen up. Sometimes they want you to just kind of be quiet and let them do their thing. Sometimes they want to do full takes. Sometimes they want to just go section by section. Be open to how they like to work. And if they don't know, then take charge and lead them in a direction that you think would work well for them. But be flexible. Every singer is different, and singing for someone else in an intimate setting like a recording studio is kind of terrifying for singers. So keep that in mind. If you're the engineer and there's a singer coming in, be sensitive to that. All right, that's it for this video. Hope it was helpful for you. What are your best vocal recording tips? Leave them in the comments below. And if you'd like a copy of that checklist I mentioned at the beginning, but you haven't gone and gotten it yet, go to homestudiocorner.com/checklist, enter your email address. You'll get a free copy emailed to you right away. Thanks for watching. See ya.